the documentary, so I don't have to have very long introductions. But just as a reminder, she doesn't have her bandana on right now, but next to me is Jim Yates.
Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? Hello. Bring Kentucky to the house.
Drummer, educator, producer, owner of Generation Studios. And she hosts a show that's available worldwide. Mm-hmm. And then next we have Dan Shinder, who, as we saw in the documentary, a drummer and founder CEO of Drum Talk TV, and social media on steroids. Help us welcome Dan. And she was blonde in the documentary, so you might not, she's incognito tonight, but we have Debbie Flood. Artist. And of course, the reason we're all here, the documentary filmmaker Cindy Goldberg. So Cindy, let's start with you. What did you learn during the making of this?
I learned that some of these women, most of these women had similar stories. They had gone through the same types of experiences, so I heard a lot of the stories repeated, and said that, wow, there's some common threads here, some things that we need to address, maybe some ideas we need to change out there. So but there was also positive stories, and some of those were that the numbers are growing, and women drummers are just becoming more recognized, more well known.
And what surprised you the most about making this documentary? Anything that you heard that was surprising?
I think I was surprised at just how hard these women work, like how they've had to really overcome the initial stigma and the challenge to be taken seriously. And for some of them, you know, like they said, they have to get on stage and prove themselves, but they did overcome, and they became recognized and respected for what they did.
And for everybody up here, what is it about drumming that speaks to you? We'll start with you, Jim.
Everything. I was birthed behind a drum set. So, again, music is the universal rhythm. It's the healing force of the universe.
So describe to me what it feels like when you're really nailing it, when you just really got it.
Oh, man. I mean, there is no other drug that can match that. You know, there's nothing that can match that. It's a high, unless you've experienced, it's hard to describe. But it's an amazing high, you know? And I've wanted to give up so many times, but that keeps me coming back every time. Just because it's just it's a great feeling. The music high, I think we call it.
Dan, and what about drumming speaks to your heart?
There's so many answers to this, so I'll do my best to keep it brief. It's the most athletic instrument. I mean, you can run around on stage with the guitar, but there's nothing athletic about playing it, or the trumpet, or the tuba, and not to minimize any joy found in playing any of those instruments, but playing drums is truly athletic. It doesn't mean you have to be slamming hard all the time, but the fact that all limbs are moving, and your body's thinking, there's a coordination thing, and like Jen said, you know, rhythm is the universal thing. It's innate in all of us. And there are times for years and years when I've been able to, like, I'll play, and I'll find my mind completely disconnected from the playing experience. I'm thinking about, well, what do we need to buy at the market, or something one of the kids said, or something, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. And I go back into it because it becomes so automatic. But it's the endorphins that it creates, as Jen said, and one of the other young ladies about the high. It's because it's a true high. It's the endorphins that are being created from the physicality of it and the dynamics. I mean, there's so many things. It's just an amazing experience. It really is.
Debbie?
Kind of like everything. I like what you said earlier, but I also think for me, drumming is really a tribal community. It's a blessing to be able to do. And for me, I wear this peace sign on my body because this is who I am, but I believe in peace and love through music. And I believe that nothing speaks to people like music. And drumming is the backbone of all of that. And there's nothing quite like when you're playing music. And you know, a lot of times, like, I wear my sunglasses for 2 reasons. Number one, I can't stand the lights in my eyes. But number two, I play with my eyes closed. And it's like when you're feeling the music and then you open your eyes and you see the crowd and they're just all like pulsating and everybody's feeling what you're doing. There is nothing that speaks to me more than how I'm impacting everyone else. And it's not even about me when I'm on stage, it's about you. And how does my vibration impact you? And that is the blessing of what I feel about playing drums is for me. And I feel great, so much gratitude that I realized this was what I was meant to do. And, you know, I've stepped away from it for, you know, a few years. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. You know, it hurts too much sometimes. It's, you know, the rejection, heard a lot of that in the movie. And, you know, but I always come back because I have to give that back. And I'm very grateful for that.
Cindy?
Well, I related to two drummers in particular in the movie, Brittany Maccarello and Juliana Massia, and they both talked about how they're, you know, kind of quieter in their daytime lives, maybe a little introverted, but when you get them on stage, when they get on stage, they kind of come out of their shell, you know, they really can show you who they are, and that's how I feel when I get on stage with, you know, the cool rocker outfit in the band, and we're just, you know, pounding away at some great song. I feel like, hey, this is who I am, and I'm really showing you me, and I love when the audience reacts to that, so. For me, the best part.
Does it matter how hard you hit it? How much is...
In what way?
Well, they talk about the strength of a man and hitting it like physically hard versus the technique. So talk about that a little bit.
I had something to say on that. In the opposite perspective of drumming, it's also more important to be able to play quiet and soft. And women can bring that softness that a man necessarily can't if they're super bulky. But to me, it's learning the technique, like they say, learning the wrist techniques, finger techniques. I can hit just as hard as anybody else. You know what I mean? It's all about the technique. But do you always need to? Not always, right? So I think it's also compare and contrast. You know, it's not all about the volume level all the time. We all know that. I could sit up here and tell 100 kids to play a drum set as hard as they can and they can do it loud. If I ask them to do it softly, maybe 2 out of the 100. It's about learning that control. And that's what drumming is about. That muscle memory, you know, healing as well. It's so healing, drums. So I think there's a contrast. And of course there's not a difference, in my opinion.
I agree 100%, and it really comes down to what does the music require? I interviewed, I'm trying to remember who it was that said this, either Derek Roddy or Achilles Priester. They're both heavy metal drummers, and they're both very good, extremely talented. I just think I can't remember which one said this, but one of them said, I asked them a question about dynamics, and I was really impressed how transparent he was when he said, I have a problem playing softly. And it is difficult, and it's difficult and a very learned skill to play fast very quietly. It's easy to play fast really loudly because it requires more energy, but to temper it and play softly. But I think the answer is it depends, it doesn't matter as much as far as are you a woman who can hit real hard, are you a man or a woman or that can serve the music and what the music requires. That's why dynamics are written in sheet music to tell the musician how to play.
Well, when I was watching the documentary, I was talking about how much a drummer plays and the fills and all that, and I was reminded of a story Vince Gill tells of when he first went in the studio as a guitar player, and he played, and they stopped recording, and they said, okay, now play half of what you know. So how has your drumming changed over the years?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, so much. You know, when I first started playing, I played like snare drum like a lot of us start, you know. And then I played jazz, and then I played rock, and now I play country, and I play blues, and I play everything, right? But I've also been blessed with taking lessons from some of the best drummers in the world. And every single one of them has taken my drums up a notch. You know, for example, I want to go back to your question you asked a second ago. Ben Smith told me, he's a drummer for Heart, he told me it's really important to connect the kick and the snare. It's not necessarily how hard you hit it, but he made sure, yes, hit that snare because they want to know where it is. But I agree, I want to go back to that question because it's an important one, that I've learned how to do that. Anyone can learn how to do that. It's not rocket science. It's all, it's a Doppler technique. It's a lot of, is that what you call it? Techniques called. But it's about how you hit it, But how it's changed is I've improved so much. And why have I improved? Because I've been open to take in as much as I can. And also I've learned something very important. Take note of this. Less is more. And, I will find those moments when I want to shine. And I'm going to show you that I can do a kick-ass fill, and I'm going to make you hear this, I'm going to do that for a second. But then I'm going to sit back in that pocket, because ultimately, it's not how fancy and frilly I can play. My favorite drummer in the world is John Bonham. And he did a lot of single-noted fills with just a pocket that was amazing. And that's how I want to play, to the music. And I think that comes with time and experience, and and the longer you play, the more you begin to understand. It's not about how frilly I can be, but how am I going to make the band better? How am I going to contribute to the band? It's not about me, And the moment you release that it's about me ego thing, the moment you become a true professional drummer, because it's not about me,
So for those of you who were featured in the documentary tonight, will you stand up? Yay! So for the 3 years to me, what did it mean to you to watch this documentary, especially seeing the other female drummers? What did it mean? Because I know there's been a lot of anticipation. People knew the documentary was in the works, but tonight was the first time anybody had seen it.
Oh, man, it meant the world to me, you know what I mean? To see and know that that's going out to the world for kids to see, for adults to see. One thing I loved about the documentary was some of the older drummers who had just started bands. Because I'm always saying that. I teach, and I've taught for 12 to 13 years now. Kids every day, about 40 students a week, with disabilities and everything else. And the one thing that I love more than anything is when someone comes up to me who's in their 60s and says, I never did drum, but I really want to make that happen. It's a bucket list. And I love to just go teach with them and spend time with them and show them things, just because it's really special. So this documentary, that was one of the main things I really loved about that. Cindy, you totally captured that. But it just means the world to me, I love to teach. So I love giving back and giving that gift that I had growing up. I was birthed basically behind a drum set. I don't have any memories at all without a drum set in my memory bank as a child. So, it brought me joy. It got me through a lot of hard times. When she's talking in the documentary about relieving stress, anger, it's so healthy for you, you know what I mean? So I just love everything about that documentary, because I think people are gonna look at it, kids look at it, it inspires them to play. Viola Smith is going on 107 and she is still playing drums, you know what I'm saying?
She's
It
amazing.
inspires people and kids. It's amazing to see the kid drummers too. I loved that part as well.
Deb, what did it mean to you to see that?
As I mentioned in my pre-talk, I know what it takes to make documentaries. I've made a few. As I've been telling Cindy since yesterday, I know how, even though I hadn't seen this before, I've only seen the trailer, and I saw maybe the first 5 minutes when they were checking the sound in here and everything. And I know what goes into it. And to see it all materialize and have this wonderful facility and staff put this on was just, it's amazing. Not that you need my pride, but so proud of you of culminating this journey into a finished product, getting all the people on board. Yeah, it's an amazing accomplishment. It's an amazing accomplishment. And sitting amongst the women in the film who are here, and even women who are drummers that were not in the film, and Some I know, some I don't know, some I've known for quite a while. Thanks to Tammy, I know a lot more when she invited me into the group. And this may sound kind of weird, but that's my sisterhood. You know, I support them, I'm behind them. I would do anything for them. I feature as many of them as possible. I encourage them and all of you to send videos into Drum Talk TV. We will feature you. And we have the largest platform to do so. So it felt...
You can't beat it? Is that what you're saying?
That's true. It's a very high honor to be part of it. It's a very high honor to be here and to be sitting amongst all of you that were part of it, and just know that in a small way I'm part of it. It's amazing. Thanks, Cindy.
Debbie, what did it mean to you?
Well, first of all, I feel really honored that you included me. That's one thing.
The honor's mine.
And I agree with everything everybody said. But I think what was really special about this, and I hope you do more, because what was really cool was to see our stories come to life and how we all had really similar stories. I was sitting there, and I don't know, I was sitting in the front, but I was nodding my head through like half of everybody talking. And I was just really, really impressed with the fact that we all have gone through some serious nonsense. And we really shouldn't have to be going through this nonsense in 2019. And guess what? I was joking with her yesterday at dinner. I mean, some of those things about are you the singer? I had that last week in Nashville. No, I'm not the singer. I'm carrying drums around because I'm a drummer. And why would I carry these things around because I'm drummer? If I wasn't the friggin' drummer, excuse my French, right? So, you know, all those things were, what I loved is how you have brought out the trials and tribulations, but also captured our passion for it. And I've had this passion, as I know all of you have, they're in this room that do it. And only the people that do it can understand what that passion is. And you captured all of that. And so, so for me, I feel privileged and honored and beyond blessed to have been in it. But anyway, it was a really great experience for us to all see that we're all going through this together.
Well, and I was going to say, I thought one of the messages was to female drummers, you're not alone. We've all experienced, you're not doing anything wrong. This is the world in which we live. Is that something that you gathered during the making of this? Like, how many stories did you hear that were the same before you went, wow?
Yeah, I mean, and I've left out some of those stories that are even, harder to hear than that, but it's inspired me to continue in some difficult situations that I've been enduring because I play in a lot of small clubs in Ottawa. They can be a bit of a, rougher crowd, people drinking heavy. I get a lot of comments. I get people even coming on stage, people trying to touch me. I mean, it's happened many times in the last 2 months.
Remember, these are Canadians.
I know. So people said, Cindy, you should stop playing these clubs. You got to play in better venues. And I thought to this movie and all these women, I thought, it's not up to me to change. I'm not going to give up my passion for playing. I'm not going on. People have to change, right? So thank you to all of you for inspiring me to keep persevering and doing what I love.
Why don't drummers get the respect they deserve?
You're giving me that?
Anybody?
I think because
Anybody, jump in.
there's a stigma, and some of this is true for this first part, is that drummers aren't thought of as musicians. A lot of drummers don't know how to play their instruments. They don't know how to read music, let alone if they may know how to read drumming music, but don't know how to read melodic music or know what key something's in. And that's okay, but that should not be criticized. It should be all about the playing. That's one thing. The other reason is, and maybe the first part has something to do with the second part, there's this sort of Neanderthal perception, or you're a drummer because you couldn't do something else, or you just like to hit stuff. And I think those are two of the reasons why there's a dumbed down perception of drummers and percussionists.
You do know that we're actually the smartest members of the band, though. Right? you do know we're the smartest members of the band. That whole Neanderthal thing.
Yeah,
the foundation.
I'm just saying,
My brain pushed out all my hair follicles.
Exactly. But seriously, folks. I mean, how many other people in the band have to do something with every appendage and sometimes even sing? I mean, think about what. So, Was that?
And carrying all the equipment.
Exactly, we're movers too, I mean,
Right.
really.
And nowadays, if you look at any pro drummer with any major artist, they're gonna also have 10 pedals over here. They have a computer
Backing
set up,
tracks.
they have backing tracks, they have generator electronics
realize
and
that-
program those. So we are the brain.
Yeah,
We are the brain.
I didn't realize when I started drumming, because when I started drumming, it was a while ago. I went also not to be a computer engineer too, because I have to run, I have to figure out all these software programs like Ableton and Pro Tools, and how's my Roland SPDSX pad gonna work, and Jesus, I just want to hit things, and you're making me have to figure out all this crap, But it's worth it because you get the gigs if you know how to do that. So, you want the gigs, you got to do that.
So something stated in the documentary was, drummers are in the back while the singers get all the attention, sometimes the guitar players. But talk about the reality of that, of being sometimes literally in the shadow, but in the back and not getting the respect of the others. How, psychologically, how does that affect you and how do you deal with it?
Oh, I wanted to, can I answer this?
Everybody.
All right, because I got a lot to say on this one. Originally, if you take any kind of like music history class, you're going to learn that the drummers were actually in the forefront and prior to the 50s. They had the orchestras behind them. Viola Smith, the band leader, Buddy Rich, the band leader, Gene Krupa, the band leader, Louis Bellson, exactly. It wasn't until the invention of television that we started going, oh, that singer looks like that, and that's the singer of this song. So you've got to remember, that's really young, when you think about it throughout music history. The drum being the oldest instrument known to humankind other than the voice, So I have a lot to say about, they've been put in the background, but I've always made it my mission in life, because I was always a very strong personality, to be the front and to try to have a whole something just by myself. You know what I mean? To prove that a drummer can have the front too. Sheila E. does that nonstop. You know what I'm saying? And it's 2020. It's done. It's coming. The female drummer is our revolutionary time period right now.
I think all that is correct, and I think that in more modern times, it's more of a staging thing. It's not like, oh, you're the drummer, so go to the back. It's more of a staging thing, so there's room for all. I really think but regarding really the answer to your question, is it's all up here. It only bothers you if you have ego. And my dad used to say, I don't have an ego, I know how great I am. But if you don't have ego, so what? The whole idea is to make music, please other people, and have fun. Who cares where you are or how lit up you are? None of that matters if you don't have ego attached to it. And
I like my drum lights, I'm sorry.
But I really believe the rest evolved out of staging. I really do.
Yeah, I want to add something to that though too. I agree that I played one show because they couldn't fit me on the stage. It was small, and this drummer wouldn't let me use his kit, so I played in front of him. And it was a really interesting perspective for me, being in the front. I actually didn't like it, to be honest with you. I enjoy being in the back.
Because then you get to see everything.
Well, yeah, but I don't mind seeing everything, but I just really like being in the back, because I know maybe it's my place, I don't know. But I think though I command attention on stage, part of how I play, and this is something I just want to add too, is like when I play, if anybody watches any of my really serious live videos where I'm going off, people think I'm doing this for show. I don't do it for show, and I want to be clear about that. I do it because it's how I feel the music. So when I'm feeling the music and my head is flying around, and there's a picture of me like this on the back of that thing, I am not thinking, oh, I want to impress you in the crowd. I'm feeling the beat. I can feel the beat from the front, I can feel the beat from the back, I can feel the beat from the side, I can feel the beat from backstage. It doesn't matter, but when I hear the music, that's what I hear, and that's what I put out. You know what I mean? So I kind of agree with you. Maybe it is ego thing, but for me, it's like you're going to command attention anyway, whether you're in the back or the front.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Cindy, what about you?
Oh, I haven't had this kind of issue. Maybe it's because I do so much of the lead singing as well, so people are compelled to pay attention to me. And so I appreciate what you guys go through, but fortunately I don't have to face that.
So did they push you on the front of the stage?
Closer to the front, yeah. No, not right at the front, but more parallel to everybody, kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen Cersei, and they're in the front. I mean,
Yeah, she's right at the front, yeah.
Exactly.
So before we saw the movie, Dan described it as a movement. So my question is, what is the message of the movement?
Okay, I'll go first. The message of the movement is really that, and so many people, my brethren said it in there, Wally said it, Jared said it, Jason said it, some of the other gentlemen said it, that it's not gender specific whatsoever. There's no gender attached to being a musician or orientation attached to being a musician, let alone a drummer. And the whole nonsense of that 1910 to 1930s perception of, you know, you were created doing a man's job. Like, what is that? And then 2000, whatever this is, you know, it's that. I think that's the message is stop that and just accept it for what it is. It's that simple because it's not going to change and it shouldn't change. And there's nothing about it that should change. It's that perception that needs to change. So the movement is that I believe this film, in its growing popularity, is going to do what it's supposed to do. And in my mind, that's to create a mind shift for people that are just behind the times in their thinking. It's a cultural thing, sometimes it's how they were brought up. It could be an age thing. It's a gender thing, because most men think that way. And even some women, how many moms said, no, you can't play drums, you're a girl. Go bake or learn how to sew. I learned how to sew when I was a kid. My mom, and I didn't feel there was anything girly about it. My mom said, you're gonna grow up, be a businessman on a trip, you need to be able to sew on a button. It's the same thing with drumming. There's no gender attached to it.
The only thing that needs to change is there needs to be more women drummers.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's going to change. And I would hope very much so that this movie shows other women, and especially young girls, that if you want to be whatever you want to be, if it's a drummer, if it's a lead guitar player, I'd like to see more lead guitar female players, honestly, you can do it. You know, if you practice, if you work hard, and if it's what you want to do, by God, do it. And I think that's what this movie, that was a lot of the message. And I hope that people take that and understand that just because I have this anatomy, it doesn't mean I can't do anything. And I think that it's not just about drumming either. I think that this whole society is hopefully having a shift to see that women are equal, that, you know, we are all equal, you know, and that we can all do whatever we put our minds to, you know. And so to me, that's what I would say about it.
Wasn't that how you say you don't play the drums with your chromosomes?
Yeah, that was like my
That was a great
favorite
one.
quote of the yes, that was awesome.
That was great.
That was a really
That
good.
was great.
So starting with Cindy, tell me who are some of your drumming role models? And also, are there great pairings of drummers and bass players that you admire?
Well, my mom, of course.
Thank you very much.
That's my ultimate role model. So my mom, yeah, she was the only drummer in Ottawa, female drummer in Ottawa that I ever known in the 80s and 90s. And then going on from then, it's all the drummers I met through the movie, like Jared Jane and Ellie Bertrand. Those are big role models for me now. God, everybody in the movie, because everybody had a different style, and I learned a little bit from everybody. It's amazing. And one thing that is really great in Ottawa is the fact you saw 5 girls from School of Rock. That's where I teach. Almost half the drum students are female now. And in fact, there's so many of them that we can't even find enough classes for them and enough bands to put them in. So it's really changing. And when they get on stage, they're just perceived the same. There's no comments, there's no like, wow, she's a girl drummer. So yeah, I'm really glad about that.
Debbie, who are your drumming role models? And also any drummer, bass player pairings you admire?
This is a really good question. I obviously you heard me say Bonham. You know, I'm a pocket drummer. That's what I do. That's, you know, and honestly, in this town, that's your meat and potatoes in Nashville. And if you can't keep good time, you might as well just leave. Honestly, as you know, so I'm trying to think bass players and drummers. So that's a really good question. You know who else I really liked, and this is going to sound weird because it's not a big, nobody knows about this guy. I love Pat Benatar growing up. And I love Myron. And I don't know the bass player's name, but I really dug those two together. You know, they were great. And I really dig his playing. and he's another guy. There's so many drummers out there. As far as female drummers, Karen Carpenter was probably the first one.
Yep.
You know, and it wasn't anything fancy, frilly, but she could really play. If you go out there and look at some of the like solo videos of her, that girl kicks ass. You know, but nobody even knew about that because she was like, a singer. So that singing thing kind of messed up her drumming thing. Yes, me. No offense to the singing drummers. I'm trying to think of who else. Sheila E. I think is amazing. Cindy Goldberg is amazing. Geez, there's so many great drummers. Annika, oh God. Taylor Gordon, I got to play with her now. And it was so fun. We were up there jamming and they stopped us, but we were getting a crowd. It was insane. And we were like so bummed that they stopped that. But she proves to me it's important. It's the pocket queen. Go look her up on Instagram if you don't know her. I brought her to the Drummer Girls United. So, anyways, but yeah, she's another one. Anyways, that's what I got.
I'm gonna blast mine out because it's a long list, so I'll edit it. As far as my first and biggest influences, John Bonham, Alan White of Yes, Phil Collins of Genesis, Carl Palmer of ELP, Neil Peart of Rush, Nick Mason of Pink Floyd, Bill Bruford of Yes and King Crimson. Those are my biggest influences. More contemporary players is an amazing jazz, swing, and orchestral player in this room, and she's sitting right there, Kelly Ray Tubbs.
Yeah, I agree.
Is an amazing, not only amazing drummer, but drumming historian as well. We feature something on Drum Talk TV every week on Thursdays called Back in Time, and it's her series, not ours, that we curate. Bass players and drummers. Oh, more contemporary drummers, if I could real quick. Ray Hearn, who I had the honor of interviewing kind of recently, is the drummer for Haken. I fell in love with progressive metal through Ray Hearn and the band Haken, just amazing compositions. Nico McBrain, there's a few others, but drummers, bass players, John Bonham and John Paul Jones, #1, Chris Squire, who we lost to leukemia 3-4 years ago, and Alan White of Yes, a dear friend of mine. Amazing rhythm sections that between both those two sets of players played such a vast variety of music. Roger Taylor and John Deacon of Queen. Those are probably, I think, my top.
Good answer.
All right, I'm gonna try to get all these in. Wait, where are we starting? Influences. First off, my father, because he put me on a set when I was 3 years old, handed me sticks and was like, he just, fostered me from there and put me in a marching band, put me in a garage band, put me in there, put me on and just said, play a shuffle all night, go, and left me there doing it. So he was my main influence. Over time, everybody I studied with, a lot of female drummers. Vicki Randall, I want to give a shout out to her because she's a great friend of mine. One of the best female percussionists I've ever seen play and got the pleasure of playing with. She was the female drummer on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. She toured with Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, sings backup for Mavis Staples, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston. I mean, her list is crazy. Awesome drummer, look her up. Ubaka Hill, African Native American drummer, taught me all kinds of crazy, amazing rhythms. Growing up, Karen Carpenter, Sheila E., Cindy Blackman Santana, obviously all the greats. I got the pleasure of meeting Allison Miller, who's a great jazz drummer in New York City. All those. As far as studying when I was a kid, my favorites today, to study Steve Gadd, Tony Williams. The list is so crazy. Phil Collins, who I see next week, by the way, for my birthday, in concert right next to the stage, so I'm super pumped. As well as the two Grateful Dead drummers, man. I loved all the bands that had the double drummers. That was a rocker. So John Bonham, obviously, I've studied everything he's done. There's so many. Stuart Copeland, I love his cymbal work. I love drummers for different things, as well as Native American drummers, and drum circlists and frame drummers. And there's so many cool drummers all over the world. I've been influenced by them all. Man, as you got me thrown off, but as far as like bass and drums, I'm just dropping the band names, from Queen, the ones from Pink Floyd. I love the Grateful Dead. I'm a Dead head, so I love all those jam bands. I love any project that Victor Wooten's a part of as a bass player, Jaco Pastorius. I love great bass players. Pleasure playing with Sarah Lee, who is a great bass player from the B-52s. I don't know, I've gotten to play with some of the coolest bass players in the country. I feel like I've got so many across the board, but I think everyone is an influence, especially even the kids that I see drumming on I'll watch Tammy, and I get influence from her, because I'm like, well, dude, I feel like crap today, I don't want to practice, and she's over there like throwing it down, and then I'm like, well, maybe I should go practice, or I see a 3-year-old doing stuff I couldn't do when I was in my 30s.
Baby boy drummer, check that out. That's
So check it out,
insanity.
they're all influences in some way, I think.
Well, there's two sides to being a drummer. The first is, of course, the creative, the musical side, but there's also the business side of marketing yourself, getting gigs, joining bands, hitting the road, making a living. What's that like to try to balance those two worlds? And what's the hardest and best part of it, of the business side?
I'll go last.
I'll go first. Well, for me, I started Restless Soul 3.5 years ago when I've had such a high turnover of band members. It's hard to find committed or musicians that are available. People have families, jobs. So, you find someone, you're with them for 6 months, you get used to each other, you learn your set lists, and then they gotta go. Something comes up, job change, family commitment, and you start over again. And they're like your family, so it's tough. So I find emotionally it's difficult to go through people over and over again and kind of have that continuity. And I'd love to see it just, last, for a couple of years together so we can actually stay together and, feel that connection.
Yeah, that's, to me, the business part is actually the hardest part. Drumming is easy compared to that part. I am very visible on Instagram, on Facebook. I try to post at least one video a day. It doesn't always work out, scheduling things, but it's really important when I'm out there playing to put something out there. Good content. Trust me, if I make a mistake, you're not going to see that on my Instagram account. So it's very important also to, not throw some bad crap out there either. I try to edit my video as best I can. But getting gigs, in Nashville is definitely challenging because, guess what? There's a lot of drummers. And believe it or not, there's a lot of girl drummers in Nashville too. I think there's like 30 or 40 that I know about. So, it's very competitive to actually do for a living. So most of us actually have day jobs too because you can't live on, I can't live on like $100 a day. I can't do that. So it's challenging, but not to give up your dream. I'm in Nashville to get a tour. I want to be out there. I've toured, and I love that. I love making music for a living. That's why I'm here. And I've done it for a living, and it's the most rewarding thing when you can do it for a living, and it's your sole source of income. You might be a little broke, but I read an interview of Matt Musty. He's Grace Potter's drummer who toured with Train this year. And there's no shame in having a day job. He has a day job still, and he's touring with friggin' Train and Grace Potter. He talks about in his latest podcast, he Ubers out there in LA. So, people have to understand something about music. You do it because you love it, not because you can actually make a living at it. But the business part of it is very challenging and frustrating to me because I know I've seen myself playing, and I know I can play as well as some of these other people, and how did they get that job and I did it? And so it's constantly trying to market, there was a person in the movie, we were discussing this before about, well, I dress sexy sometimes. I like dressing sexy. But I also feel that's a way to market myself. Take advantage of what you have, the strengths you have, because what else can I do? If I came to a show in a t-shirt and like jeans, I just don't think I would gain, I don't know, for me, I couldn't do that. That's just for me. I have to have an image, and that's what the business side of it is having an image, putting an image out there. I'm known as D-Flood Drums, that's what I am. And so I've marketed that. So I tag it on everything, and I make sure I do that. I tag everything, use social media, that's what it's there for. I use platforms like Drum Talk, I use a video. It's like, he put a video out there, got 70,000 hits in like a day. Now granted, I got some nasty comments because I wore some sexy clothes and people were like, being mean. which was not cool. But you know, but that's the kind of stuff you have to do, is like take advantage of all of that, because you know, when I first started playing, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook, and it's a double-edged sword. I freaking hate it that I have to like do this stuff, but I have to do this stuff if I'm going to get work. So that would be my answer. I hope that helps. I don't know.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. One more time on the question.
I
Business.
ran. I'm sorry. I do that.
One more
Yeah.
time.
So just talk about, how would you describe the business side?
Okay,
Are,
the business
are
side.
there do's and don'ts?
Oh, yeah, well, of course there are do's and don'ts. But on the business side of things, I felt like I was in, you know, my story is a little bit different. I was in corporate America for all the way up into my 30s. And then I dropped out of music school because I didn't want to be a music teacher. I thought, what am I going to do with this degree? I'm just going to pay a bunch of money to a school for a degree I'm never going to use. So I dropped out and went in radio and television and moved and kept doing that. But I kept playing in bands all along the way, producing records and doing all this cool original stuff. And at 30 years old, I decided to give up a lot of money and pursue my love of music because I didn't care about the money. So as soon as I stopped caring about the money and started believing in myself as a drummer and just following my passion, the money just kind of followed. It's always there when I needed it. So as business side though, I felt like because I had worked in radio and television and knew how to audio edit and knew how to video edit and knew that you needed an image and knew that how to work technology and build websites, you know, that it helped me along the way. Obviously, you've got to market yourself. I run my own business now for the past 10 years, Generation Studios, where I teach children. I go to their homes and I teach kid drums. You know, the Louisville Leopards, some of those kids, those are my private students. I go to their house. And in order for me to sustain business, I've done that completely through social media and grassroots and word of mouth. Because I found that if I went to a neighborhood and taught a kid, then they go play with all these other kids, and then they are telling them they play drums, and all the kids in the neighborhood then want to play drums. And the next thing you know, I've got 4 or 5 moms calling me, wanting to hire me. You know, so I have made a living at doing drums now for the past 10 to 12 years, strictly on word of mouth and social media and marketing myself, as well as separating that to be a solo artist myself and put out my own music and produce other people and stuff like that. And so it's very important today. And I did grow up, you know, not really seeing the computer. We didn't have social media, like Debbie was saying. We didn't have all that stuff growing up. But I was fortunate that I worked in a business that helped me take these talents and then use them in my music business career. You know what I mean? So it's very important. What was the other? Are there do's and don'ts? Well, I mean, you don't want to be, first off, it's all about that image. You don't want to be having a crappy image. And, you know, you don't want to be an asshole either, because then nobody's going to want to work with you. So that's the don'ts, you know. Try not to post all your business on there. Try to keep it, you know, if you're trying to sell yourself as a drummer, yes, a little fun here and there, but also keep it about the drums, keep it about the business. As far as she was talking about not putting mistakes online, I found that when I started to put my mistakes online, I got more of a response from people because it almost made me more human in a weird way, or relatable to maybe people who, you know, were just a couple years in or something like that. And so I was really weird and, you know, anal about that for a long time, but I have found over time that I got way more relaxed and got older and didn't really care as much and would just be like, yep, I stopped in the middle of that and did something weird, I don't even know, and then I'd put it up and then I'd get more hits. It was very odd. So as far as do's and don'ts, I mean, you know, image is everything. Try to market yourself as a cool person. Know your history, whoever said that. Know your music history, you said it. Definitely, you know the people who came before you, your sheroes and your heroes, you know, and practice, know your stuff. So, anyway.
I haven't played, excuse me, I haven't played in a band in years. But I sometimes sit in. I used to tour, used to record, used to be a session player, used to produce, compose, all those things. But as far as the business side, as I mentioned earlier today, Drum Talk TV is 900% larger in online reach and engagement than all of our media peers, which is a fun, friendly way of saying competition. All of our media peers combined, and that's since the first year. In the first 7 weeks, we had 47,000 fans on Facebook. I know companies that have been on Facebook 10 years that don't have that. And I know companies that are legacy companies that have been around for 50 to 100 years that have millions of fans, but no engagement because they're not doing it right. Because they haven't figured out the digital thing. And usually what happens is you got what I call the rusty crusties. I'll demonstrate, okay? This isn't, I'm gonna bring out 2 age categories, and this isn't to demean anybody, but the rusty crusties, let me see if I can.
I got the 24-year-olds, they're on social media, they'll know what to do, okay?
Nothing against social media, nothing against 24-year-olds, but they think that because they're of the age of using social media that they'll get everything done. And then mid-management is telling them what to do, and they know less, and they know how to push the buttons, but they don't know what a web ecosystem is, or what funnel marketing is, or what content marketing is, and it's all about the content. And in that first year of Drunk Talk TV, I started a whole other company as if I needed another full-time job, and it's social media on steroids. I talk about, I'm asked every year to teach at the NAMM show, to do a session. I write books on it, I do webinars, I consult, I do it inside the music industry, I do it outside the music industry. I've worked with Ford, Citibank, Wells Fargo, the Young's Food Group, and it's so important to understand, not just do social media, but learn and not copy everyone who's doing it wrong and fall off the cliff, because that's what everyone's doing, especially when it comes to hashtag. Hashtag drums, hashtag jazz, hashtag rock, hashtag sunny day. None of that does anything for your posts. It's got to be unique to your brand. So my perspective is that I've spent over 50,000 hours figuring this out. Learn from someone like me or someone else. If I don't resonate with you, that's totally fine, but learn. Don't try to guess at it or figure it out. That's crazy. So as far as do's and don'ts, again, it's don't overthink videos. They don't have to be in 4K or HD. And please, for the love of God,
He always yells at me for this.
Oh, that sound bites.
hold your phones like
Always
this.
yelled
You
at
see,
for that.
Tammy? Hold your phones like this, because guess what? You see how that screen is shaped? It's shaped like this. How's your flat screen shaped at home? How's your computer screen shaped? How's a YouTube screen shaped? When we do this, it's like you're cracking and peeking through a door.
It is. You're right.
Yeah.
It is.
When I saw Wally's video up there, I went,
I know. I saw it too.
All right, we're running out of time,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
let Cindy get the last word.
okay, sorry.
What's our hashtag, by the way? Can we upload our videos and have a hashtag?
So in about an hour, 10 minutes, this video is going live on Vimeo pay-per-view. So I'm hoping you'll share it. Please write any comments you'd like on the page on Vimeo. It's, I think, Vimeo on demand /beekeepers, but you'll find it if you Google it. And yeah, share it. That's the way we're going to get this movie out there and the message out there. So thank you so much for coming, being a part of this, and for supporting this project. And thanks to all these amazing people, men and women, that have been a part of
Thank you for making this video. Give it up for Cindy.
Let's bring this thing to life.
Thank you. It's amazing, and the staff, thanks so much for helping Cindy put this on.
Beverly, thank you so much for being the moderator.
Thank
One
you.
of the big powerful things from the movie for me, because I'm an old actress, is that I saw that you have people that you admire, but you also realize that you'll never be that person. So you have to find who's you. And I love it, Debbie, that you talked about that. And I love it that you talked about that. Because that's what's important in all of our careers, no matter what we do, is I'll never be Meryl Streep, but I can be the best of Linda Evgen. Just like you can be the best drummer that God ever put on this earth, because you're unique. So have a great day, and I love you all.